We got Katie McFarland on the line, national security analyst for Fox News, all-round good gal and a friend of this program. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning.
All right, so we got stuff to talk about. I mean, we got stuff to talk about Benghazi. We got stuff to talk about in Ukraine. But I want to start out by talking about all of this talk about releasing Jonathan Pollard, a convicted spy, as part of the Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. I'm not quite sure exactly what's in the works, but there seems to be a lot of burbling out there on both sides, all sides of this discussion, that Jonathan Pollard's continued incarceration is apparently on the table.
Yeah, and here's why. Somehow the administration thinks if they release him, that the Israelis will say, oh, okay, great, now we're going to really make all these concessions and we're going to have peace in the Middle East. I think it's a misconceived notion for a lot of reasons. We can't want that deal between Israel and the Palestinians more than the Israelis and Palestinians want it. It won't work. And I have long thought that, contrary to the administration's feeling that, well, if they could only get a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians, somehow peace is going to break out throughout the Middle East. I think just the opposite. I think that the Israeli-Palestinian deal, if there ever is one, comes after the other things have been sorted out. Because even if you were able to get a deal signed tomorrow at noon, some kind of a deal where the Israelis and the Palestinians come to an agreement about how they should go forward, you could have that thing blown up, literally blown up within 24 hours by terrorist groups, by attacks. It would be such a fragile peace that if anybody, Hezbollah, whoever, decided they wanted to really just sabotage it, they could, and then the whole thing would break down. So I think until you get all the other countries around to say, we want this deal too, we're going to live in peace, we figured out the role of our Hezbollah and everybody else, and we're not going to sabotage any Israeli-Palestinian deal, I think, you don't ever get a deal.
Well, and KT McFarland, if the Palestinians are interested in working with Israel and U.S. toward a peaceful resolution here, they certainly didn't show signs of it yesterday when they defied America's wishes and unilaterally joined 15 international agencies. Mm-hmm. Palestine is not a country. They're just a territory there. They haven't been recognized as a country. What business do they have joining these international agencies as a sovereign state?
Well, there's some technicality, that they can sort of slip in under that through some UN regulations. We don't need to go there. But I think that the bigger point is that we should have learned in Iraq and Afghanistan that we can't want it more than they do. We can't impose it on them. Right. And right now, those guys don't want it. The Palestinians don't want it.
One of the things that we've been wondering is who was the person in the Obama administration that was putting forth this narrative that the Benghazi attacks were the result of that movie and protests that just spiraled out of control. We now know that the station chief in Libya is on record as having said, hey, look, I told them the day before Susan Rice went on national TV and told that fib to the American people, I told them very clearly this had nothing to do with the protest. It was passed on to Mike Morrell over at the CIA, deputy director, and he's apparently going to testify on Capitol Hill today about all that. What do we expect to hear?
Well, I'm sure he's going to try to slip and slide and not ever say, get pinned down on anything. But you're absolutely right. What we now know is the guys on the ground, the CIA station chief, the person whose information you rely on back home, is that it was never a terrorist, that it was always a terrorist attack. It was a well-coordinated terrorist attack, and it was a prolonged terrorist attack. And they never mentioned anything about a demonstration getting out of hand. So the question is, that's the information that went from Libya, Benghazi, to Washington. Then what happened? Did the CIA change it? Did they send something to the White House that was false, saying, it was a demonstration, it wasn't terrorist? Did they send it correctly, saying it was terrorists, and then the White House changed it? Did the White House ask them to change it? That's where it all breaks down, and that's what we need to find out.
Apparently, some reports out that Morrell will say, that, look, I passed it on.
Well, then, the next question is, where is the Special Select Committee that's going to subpoena the White House employees and subpoena the emails and have prosecutorial powers, powers to have people force them to come and give their testimony and turn over their files.
Yeah, where indeed.
Because it's in there somewhere. There's a paper trail.
KT McFarland's our guest. We should point out she will be on Fox News later this afternoon at 1 p.m. And I wonder if you're going to delve into this issue. I think it's fascinating. At the beginning of the Obama administration, President Obama made a lot of overtures to the Muslim Brotherhood, went out of his way, defied his Egyptian host there when he gave his speech in Egypt, and invited the Muslim Brotherhood to that speech. And now here we are in 2014, and our own partner in peace, David Cameron, in the Great Britain, he's ordered MI6 to probe into the Muslim Brotherhood and their activities. What's going on there?
Well, it's interesting. I was in Egypt 6 months ago, and it was clear that what people there thought was there was a real Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, radical terrorist connection. And that that was what was causing a lot of the problems in the Sinai Peninsula.
And whenever that's raised here in the U.S. by media personalities, we're told they were haters.
Oh yeah, they were just dismissed it. Everyone here seemed to think, mainstream media said, well, the Muslim Brotherhood, they're just like another political party. They're like Democrats, Republicans, Muslim Brotherhood. And now it's turning out maybe there is something to it. And if you have David Cameron, British Prime Minister, saying, MI6, go investigate who is the Muslim Brotherhood, what are they doing in Britain, what are they doing what are their connections to worldwide terrorism, maybe we'll rethink who the Muslim Brotherhood are.
Well, and would you recommend that we conduct those same investigations here on this side of the pond?
You bet.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's see if that happens.
Yeah.
Situation.
Hold your breath.
Situation in Ukraine, better, worse than it was a week ago?
And it sort of stabilized for a little bit of time. Russia got what it wanted, Crimea. Now Russia's got the troops on the border. Now they're talking about diplomacy. I think at the end of the day, Russia's threat is to NATO, not because he's going to move the tanks. He probably doesn't have to move the tanks because he's got the tanks on one side of the border. Ukraine is a basket case economically. And so is the West going to bail it out to the point where the Ukrainians, the rest of Ukraine, wants to go with the West? Or 6 months from now, are they going to be so desperate they're going to look other places for deals? And I think Russia its goal here is to reclaim that ethnic Russian band along its border and greatly weaken NATO. And as far as I can tell, they're on course.
All right. KT McFarland, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
744.